Zara Adekunle said to her young, handsome Korean billionaire CEO, "I lost you without ever having you." The first thing people noticed about Zara Adekunle was how little there was to notice. No loud laughter echoing through the office halls. No unnecessary conversations. No lingering presence begging to be seen. Just precision. Every step she took inside Seo Global headquarters was measured, her heels clicking softly against the polished marble floors, her posture straight, her expression composed like a woman who had long ago mastered control. But invisibility? That was her real armor, because attention came with consequences, and Zara had learned that lesson the hard way. The glass doors of the executive floor slid open with a quiet hiss. Inside, power lived in silence. Assistants whispered. Executives moved with urgency. Every second here had value, and at the center of it all was him, Jihoon Seo, young, brilliant, untouchable. The kind of man whose presence didn't need noise to command a room. He simply walked in, and the air adjusted. Zara stood by her desk, tablet in hand, already aware of his arrival before she even looked up. She always knew. "Miss Adekunle." His voice was calm, smooth, carrying quiet authority. Zara lifted her gaze just enough to acknowledge him, but not enough to linger. "Good morning, sir. Your 9 a.m. meeting has been moved to 9:30. The Tokyo investors requested additional time." Efficient, clear, detached. Jihoon studied her for a second longer than necessary. Noted. He didn't move. Neither did she. For a brief moment, the space between them stretched. Not awkward, not comfortable, just charged. Then he turned and walked into his office, the glass doors closing behind him. And just like that, the moment disappeared. But for Zara, it never really did. She released a breath she didn't realize she was holding. Her fingers tightened slightly around the tablet before she forced them to relax. Get it together. This was her job, and she was very good at it. Too good. Because being good meant being trusted. Being trusted meant being close. And being close? That was dangerous. Hours passed in a blur of meetings, calls, and schedules. Zara moved like clockwork, anticipating needs before they were spoken, solving problems before they existed. By midday, the entire executive floor was running on her rhythm, and Jihoon knew it. He noticed everything, the way she never made mistakes, the way she spoke only when necessary, or the way her eyes, dark, unreadable, never revealed what she was thinking. It intrigued him. More than it should have. "Cancel my 2 p.m. Zara blinked, slightly surprised. "Sir?" Jihoon stepped out of his office, adjusting his cufflinks. "I'll handle it later. That meeting involves the board." "I know." Their eyes met, for a second too long. Zara swallowed, maintaining her composure. Understood. She turned to make the call, but she could feel it, his gaze lingering, watching, studying, as if trying to solve a puzzle that refused to be solved. Later that evening, the office began to empty. Lights dimmed, voices faded. The city beyond the glass walls came alive with golden reflections. But Zara was still there. Of course she was. She always stayed until everything was perfect, even when no one asked her to. Even when no one noticed. Or so she thought. "Do you ever go home?" The voice came from behind her, low, familiar. Zara froze for half a second before turning. Jihoon stood a few steps away, his tie slightly loosened now, his usual sharpness softened by the late hour. "I could ask you the same, sir," she replied calmly. A faint smirk touched his lips. "Fair." Silence settled between them again, but this time it felt different, less formal, more human. Jihoon walked closer, stopping at the edge of her desk. "You've been here every night this week." "It's part of the job." "No," he said quietly. "It's more than that." Zara's fingers paused over the keyboard. For a moment she didn't respond, because he was right, and that made it dangerous. "I prefer efficiency," she said finally. Jihoon tilted his head slightly. He's studying her again. And working yourself into exhaustion is efficient? Zara met his gaze, briefly, carefully. It keeps things simple. Something in her tone made him pause. Simple? There was nothing simple about her. Not the way she spoke, not the way she carried herself, not the way she avoided everything that felt even remotely personal. Jihoon leaned slightly against her desk, his voice quieter now. You don't talk much about yourself. Zara's lips curved into a faint, almost invisible smile. Some stories are better left unread. Their eyes met again, and this time, neither of them looked away immediately, because beneath the calm, beneath the control, something was happening, something neither of them had planned, something neither of them was ready for. Zara broke the moment first, turning back to her screen. Was there anything else you needed, sir? The word sir landed like a wall between them. Jihoon straightened, the distance snapping back into place. No. A pause. Then, good night, Miss Adekunle. Good night, sir. He walked away. But this time, he felt it. That strange, quiet pull. The one that made no sense. The one that didn't belong in his perfectly controlled world. And Zara. She didn't move for a long time after he left. The office was silent now. Empty. Safe. Only then did she allow herself to close her eyes. Just for a second. Just enough to admit the truth she would never say out loud. You're in trouble. Because no matter how invisible she tried to be, one man had already seen her. And if she wasn't careful, he would see everything. Jihoon Seo believed in control. It was the foundation of everything he had built. His empire, his reputation, his life. Control meant discipline. Control meant distance. Control meant never allowing emotions to interfere with decisions. And most importantly, control meant never crossing lines that couldn't be uncrossed. Zara Adekunle was becoming one of those lines. It started subtly, small things, things no one else would notice. Your coffee, sir. Zara placed the cup on his desk without looking at him. Jihoon didn't respond immediately. He was watching her again. Not openly, he wasn't careless, but enough to notice details he shouldn't have cared about. The steadiness of her hands, the softness she hid beneath her sharp professionalism, the way she always turned slightly before leaving, as if resisting the urge to say something more. Miss Adekunle, she paused at the door. Yes, sir. He hesitated. For a fraction of a second, something rare for him. Sit. Zara blinked. That was new. Sir? I need to review the Tokyo projections again. Stay. Professional, reasonable, completely unnecessary. But she nodded anyway. Of course. Minutes turned into an hour turned into 2, and somewhere between spreadsheets and strategy. The air changed. You missed a variable here, Jihoon said, pointing at her screen. Zara leaned closer, her shoulder nearly brushing his. I didn't miss it, she replied calmly. I accounted for it in the secondary column. Jihoon glanced again. She was right. Of course she was. A faint smirk tugged at his lips. You always do that. Do what? Anticipate problems before they exist. Zara didn't look at him. That's my job. No, he said quietly. It's not just your job. That made her pause, because there was something in his tone, something personal. She leaned back slightly, creating space. Is there anything else, sir? There it was again. That word, that distance. Jihoon leaned back in his chair, studying her. You're very careful. Zara met his gaze briefly. Careful people last longer. And reckless people? He asked. Her lips curved faintly. They feel more. Silence, heavy, uncomfortable, honest. Jihoon looked away first. That annoyed him. Go home, he said abruptly. Zara frowned slightly. There's still work to... That's not a suggestion, she hesitated, because this wasn't about work anymore. And they both knew it. Good night, sir. She stood, gathering her things with quiet efficiency. But just as she reached the door, Zara, she froze. Her name, not Miss Adekunle, not secretary, just Zara. Slowly she turned. Their eyes met, and something shifted. Something neither of them could take back. Jihoon exhaled slowly, as if realizing what he had just done. Then, more carefully this time. Good night. Zara held his gaze for 1 second longer than she should have. Good night. Jihoon. The moment she said it, she regretted it, because the effect was immediate. Jihoon stilled, completely, as if the world had paused just to register the sound of his name on her lips. Not formal, not distant, not controlled. Personal. Zara turned quickly and walked out before the silence could consume her. Her heart was racing now, faster than she would ever allow anyone to see. That was a mistake. Inside the office, Jihoon didn't move for a long time. His gaze remained fixed on the door she had just walked through. His name. The way she said it. It lingered. And for the first time in years, Jihoon Seo felt something dangerously close to losing control. Days passed, but something had changed. Miss Adekunle. Zara, he corrected himself almost unconsciously. She looked up, startled. He didn't acknowledge it, neither did she. But the tension, it grew. Late nights became routine, not because they had to, but because neither of them wanted to leave first. Still here? Jihoon asked one evening, loosening his tie as he stepped out. Zara didn't look up. Deadlines don't respect time. Neither do you, he said. That made her pause. She glanced at him, a hint of something unreadable in her eyes. Is that a complaint? An observation. Jihoon walked closer, stopping beside her desk. You push yourself too much. And you don't? She countered softly. A beat. Then, I have reasons, he said. Zara's expression softened just slightly. So do I. There it was again. That wall, that mystery, that part of her he couldn't reach. Jihoon leaned against her desk, closer than necessary. You hide a lot. Zara's fingers stilled on the keyboard. And you don't? He didn't answer, because she was right. The space between them felt smaller now. Too small. Why do you keep your distance? He asked quietly. Zara's breath caught, but only for a second. Then she stood, slowly, forcing composure back into place. Because some distances are necessary. Necessary for what? She looked at him, really looked this time. And there it was, that emotion she tried so hard to bury. Survival. Jihoon's expression shifted, because that wasn't an answer someone gave lightly, but before he could ask more. Zara stepped back, the distance returned, the wall rebuilt. Is there anything else you need, sir? The word cut through everything again. Clean. Final. Safe. Jihoon straightened, his jaw tightened slightly. No, she nodded once, professional, composed, untouchable, and walked away. But this time, neither of them felt in control anymore, because the truth was becoming impossible to ignore. They weren't just crossing lines, they were standing right on the edge of something irreversible. And sooner or later, one of them was going to fall. The news didn't arrive with noise, no warning, no build-up, just a headline. Zara's EO, Global CEO, Jihoon, SEO, spotted with heiress Lee Sirin. Engagement expected. Zara Adekunle read it once, then again, then a third time, slower, as if maybe, just maybe, the words would rearrange themselves into something less cruel. They didn't. The office buzzed louder than usual that morning. Whispers floated like smoke through the executive floor. Did you see the photos? She's from one of the most powerful families in Korea. They look perfect together. Zara walked through it all like she couldn't hear a thing. Her heels clicked steadily against the floor. Her face, untouched, unbothered, unbreakable. But inside, something had already cracked. She reached her desk, placed her bag down carefully and opened her tablet. Schedules, emails, meetings, normal. Everything was normal. Miss Adekunle. Her body reacted before her mind did. Zara turned, and there he was. Jihoon Seo, perfectly composed, impeccably dressed, untouched by the storm he had just created in her world. "Good morning, sir," she said smoothly. No hesitation, no emotion, no sign that anything had changed. Jihoon studied her for a moment, too closely. "You've seen it." It wasn't a question. Zara tilted her head slightly. "Seen what, sir?" "A lie. Clean. Controlled. Immediate." Jihoon's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. The news. A pause. Just one. Then, "Oh," Zara said lightly, as if it had just come to her. "Yes. Congratulations." There it was. The moment. The one that should have meant nothing. The one that meant everything. Jihoon's eyes locked onto hers. "Is that all you have to say?" Zara met his gaze. Calm. More steady. Distant. "What else would you expect me to say, sir?" "Sir." Again. Always sir when she needed to protect herself. Jihoon took a step closer. "Does it bother you?" The question landed heavier than it should have. Too direct. Too personal. Too dangerous. Zara's fingers tightened slightly around her tablet, but her expression didn't change. Why would it? Silence. Sharp. Unforgiving. Jihoon searched her face for something, anything. A crack. A flicker. A truth. But Zara had spent years learning how to disappear inside herself, and right now, she was gone. "Prepare the documents for the 2 p.m. meeting," he said finally, his tone colder now. "Of course, sir." And just like that, the conversation ended. But the damage? It had only just begun. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Zara worked, answered calls, or organised schedules, coordinated meetings, perfect, flawless, untouchable. But every now and then, she saw it, a photo on someone's phone, Jihoon standing beside Lee Si-rin, elegant, beautiful, smiling, her hand resting lightly on his arm, like she belonged there. Zara looked away every time, quickly, quietly, because the truth was too sharp to stare at for too long. That should be me. The thought slipped in before she could stop it, and once it did, it refused to leave. By evening, the office had emptied, again, just like every other night. But tonight felt different, heavier, colder. Zara sat alone at her desk, staring at her screen, but not seeing anything. Her mind kept replaying the same image, Jihoon with someone else, smiling, existing in a world where she didn't belong. Her chest tightened. Her breath grew shallow. And then, without realizing it, she whispered it. "I lost you." Her voice broke slightly. "Without ever having you." The words hung in the empty office, soft, fragile, devastating. You can't lose something that was never yours. Zara froze. Her heart stopped. Slowly. She turned. Jihoon stood behind her. He had heard it. All of it. The silence that followed was unbearable. Zara stood quickly, her composure snapping back into place like armor. "I didn't realize you were still here, sir." "Sir." Again. But this time. It sounded different. Weaker. Jihoon stepped closer, his expression unreadable. "Who are you talking about?" Zara's throat tightened. "No one." Another lie. But this one? It trembled. Jihoon's gaze didn't leave her. "Zara." Her name. Soft. Dangerous. Look at me." She didn't want to, because she knew. If she did, everything she had been holding back would spill out. But slowly, against her better judgment, she lifted her eyes. And there it was. Everything she had tried to hide. Pain, jealousy, longing. Jihoon saw it, finally, clearly, and it hit him harder than he expected. "Does it bother you?" he asked again, quieter this time. Zara let out a shaky breath, just one, before she forced a small, controlled smile. "No, sir." The lie broke between them, because this time, he didn't believe her. And for the first time, she wasn't sure she believed herself either. The invitation arrived on a quiet Thursday afternoon. Minimal, elegant, exclusive, SEO Global Annual Gala, invitation only. Zara Adekunle stared at the envelope for a moment longer than necessary. She wasn't supposed to attend. Not like this. Not as a guest. You should go. Her colleague's voice broke through her thoughts. Zara looked up. I'll be working the event. No, the woman said with a knowing smile. You've been personally invited. Board level. Zara frowned slightly. That didn't make sense. Across the building, Jihoon Seo signed off on the final guest list. His pen paused for half a second over one name, Zara Adekunle. He didn't question it, didn't justify it. He simply left it there. Because something in him needed her to be there, not as his secretary, but as something else, something he hadn't fully defined yet. The night of the gala arrived dressed in gold and power. The ballroom shimmered with crystal lights, soft music, and the quiet arrogance of wealth. Every detail was perfection, just the way Jihoon liked it. He stood near the center of it all, dressed in a tailored black tuxedo, his presence commanding without effort. Beside him, Lee Se-rin, graceful, elegant, untouchable. Her hand rested lightly on his arm as she spoke to investors, her smile practiced and flawless. Jihoon barely heard her. His attention kept drifting. To the entrance, he didn't know why, but he did. And then, she walked in. Zara Adekunle. The room didn't stop, the music didn't pause, but something shifted. She wore black. Not loud, not extravagant, but devastating. The dress hugged her form with quiet confidence, her hair cascading effortlessly, her presence no longer invisible, impossible to ignore. Jihoon's breath caught. Just for a second. Se-rin noticed. Jihoon. He didn't respond. Because across the room, Zara had just looked at him. And this time, she didn't look away first. The air between them tightened instantly, charged, unspoken, dangerous. Zara broke eye contact and moved further into the crowd, greeting a board member with polite composure. But inside, her heart was anything but calm. Why did I come? Because she already knew the answer, because she couldn't stay away. Who is she? Se-rin's voice was soft but sharp. Jihoon's gaze didn't leave Zara. My secretary. A pause. Se-rin followed his line of sight, her expression shifting slightly as she took in Zara's presence. She doesn't look like one. Jihoon didn't respond, because for the first time, he agreed. Across the room, Zara tried to focus on conversation, tried to smile, tried to breathe, but she could feel it. His eyes. On her, and worse, she saw him, standing with Se-rin, close, familiar, expected. Jealousy curled quietly in her chest, not loud, not dramatic, just suffocating. That's where you belong, she told herself, not near him. But her eyes betrayed her again, lingering, watching, wanting. May I? A male voice pulled her attention away. Zara turned to see a tall, well-dressed man offering his hand. Dance? She hesitated, just for a second. Then, yes. Because if she stayed still any longer, she might break. On the other side of the room, Jihoon saw everything. The hand, the acceptance, the way she stepped closer to another man. Something inside him snapped. Excuse me, he muttered, pulling away from Se-rin before she could respond. The music swelled. Zara moved gracefully across the floor, in her hand resting lightly on her partner's shoulder. She smiled, soft, polite but not real. Relax, her partner whispered. You look like you're trying to escape. Zara let out a small breath. Maybe I am. Then why stay? Before she could answer, a hand gripped her wrist, firm, possessive. May I cut in? Jihoon's voice. Low, controlled, but barely. The man hesitated, but one look at Jihoon was enough. Of course. And just like that, Zara was pulled away. Her heart pounded. Sir, don't, Jihoon interrupted. His hand slid to her waist, closer than ever before, too close. Don't call me that tonight. Zara's breath hitched. Then what should I call you? Jihoon's eyes darkened slightly. Jihoon. The music slowed, the world blurred. And suddenly, it was just them. Why were you dancing with him? He asked quietly. Zara blinked, caught off guard. Because he asked. That's not an answer. She frowned slightly. It's the only one you're getting. Jihoon pulled her closer, subtly, but enough to feel the shift. I didn't like it. The words landed between them, raw, unfiltered. Zara's heart skipped. Why? She whispered. Jihoon didn't answer immediately because the truth was dangerous. Instead, he said, You don't belong with him. Zara's eyes flashed. And I belong with you? Silence. That question had no safe answer. Jihoon's grip tightened slightly. You're crossing a line. Zara let out a soft, almost bitter laugh. No, she said quietly. I'm standing exactly where I've always been. She stepped back slightly, creating space, trying to breathe. You're the one who's confused, she continued. You don't get to feel something now just because someone else noticed me. That hit hard. Jihoon's jaw tightened. Is that what this is? Zara held his gaze. Isn't it? The tension snapped. Jihoon stepped closer, too close. Zara. Her name sounded different now, not controlled, not distant, needy. Her breath caught, because in that moment, she saw it, the truth he hadn't said yet, and it terrified her. Stop, she whispered. But neither of them moved. His hand lifted slightly, brushing against her cheek. Soft, careful, electric. Zara's eyes fluttered. Her body leaned in, just a fraction. And for one dangerous second, everything else disappeared. The rules, the titles, the consequences. It was just him and her. And the space between their lips. Closing, almost. But then, reality crashed back in. Zara stepped back sharply, her breath uneven, her heart racing. I can't, she whispered. Jihoon froze. You're engaged, she continued, her voice breaking slightly now. And I'm... She stopped herself, because saying it out loud would hurt too much. I'm not her, she finished softly. The distance between them felt wider now, colder, final. Jihoon's hand dropped. His expression hardened again, but not completely, not like before, because the crack was already there. Zara turned and walked away. This time, he didn't stop her, because he knew, if he did, he wouldn't be able to let her go. And for the first time in his life, Jihoon Seo realized something terrifying. He didn't want to. The morning after the gala felt wrong. Too quiet, too normal. Zara Adekunle arrived at Seo Global at exactly 8 a.m., just like always. Same heels, same posture, same composed expression. But something was missing. The softness in her eyes, the quiet warmth she never let anyone see. The part of her that had once hoped. It was gone. Good morning, Miss Adekunle. Good morning. Her voice was polite, flat, untouched. She walked to her desk, placed her bag down and turned on her tablet. Emails flooded in, schedules lined up, meetings stacked, and she handled everything perfectly, as if nothing had happened the night before, as if she hadn't almost crossed a line she could never uncross, as if her heart hadn't nearly betrayed her completely. Inside Jihoon Seo's office, nothing felt right. He stood by the glass window staring out at the city. No, but not seeing it. His mind replayed one moment over and over again, her breath against his skin, her eyes closing, her lips almost touching his, and then the way she pulled away. I can't. Those two words echoed louder than anything else. A knock on the door. Come in. Zara stepped inside. Professional, composed, distant. Jihoon turned, and immediately, he felt it, the shift. It was subtle, but undeniable. She wasn't just keeping her distance anymore. She was gone. Your 10 a.m. has been confirmed, she said, placing documents on his desk, and the board requested a revised proposal by noon. Jihoon didn't respond. He was watching her. Again. But this time, he wasn't curious. He was searching. Zara, she paused. Sir? There it was again. That word. That wall. Stronger than ever. We need to talk. A beat. Then. There's nothing to talk about. The words were calm. Too calm. Jihoon stepped closer. Yes, there is. Zara finally looked at him. And for the first time, there was no softness left. No, she said quietly, there really isn't. Something in his chest tightened. Last night was a mistake. She didn't let him finish, didn't hesitate, didn't flinch. Jihoon stilled. A mistake? He repeated. Zara nodded once. Yes. The word hit harder than he expected, because it wasn't just rejection, it was erasure. Is that what you think? He asked, his voice lower now. Zara held his gaze. It's what I know. Silence. Cold. Sharp. Jihoon clenched his jaw slightly. You didn't seem unsure last night. The tension snapped. Zara's composure cracked, just slightly. Don't do that. Do what? Don't act like this is something it's not. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried something heavier. Whatever you felt, she continued, it doesn't matter. Jihoon's eyes darkened. It matters to me. That almost broke her, but she held it together, barely. It shouldn't, she said softly. And that was worse, because she wasn't angry, she wasn't emotional. She had already decided. Zara stepped forward, placing a sealed envelope on his desk. Jihoon frowned slightly. What is this? She didn't answer immediately, because this was the hardest part. My resignation letter. Silence. Complete. Total. Unforgiving. Jihoon didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't react. No. The word came out instantly, sharp, absolute. Zara's expression didn't change. See, it's already been processed. Jihoon's eyes snapped to hers. You don't get to decide that without talking to me. This isn't a discussion, she replied calmly. It's a decision. Anger flickered beneath his control. You're leaving because of last night? Zara shook her head slightly. I'm leaving because I stayed too long. That confused him. What does that mean? She hesitated, just for a second. Then, it means I forgot my place. The words cut deep. Jihoon stepped closer. You're not just... I am, she interrupted quietly. Her voice softened, but it didn't break. I'm your employee, nothing more. A lie. They both knew it, but she needed it to be true. Because the alternative would destroy her. Jihoon's voice dropped. Zara, look at me and say that, like you believe it. She did. And that was the problem, because her eyes betrayed her, just for a second. Pain. Then it disappeared. Goodbye, Mr. Seo. Mr. Seo. Not Jihoon. Not even Sir, just distance. Final. She turned, walked to the door, and this time she didn't hesitate. Zara. His voice stopped her, but she didn't turn around. Because if she did, she wouldn't leave, and she had to leave. I hope, Jihoon said slowly, you don't regret this. A pause. Zara's hand tightened slightly on the door handle. Then, without looking back, she said, I already do. And she walked out. For the last time. The door closed softly behind her, but the sound echoed, loud, final, inside the office. Jihoon stood still, for a long time. Then slowly, he looked at the envelope on his desk. Her resignation. He picked it up, opened it. I read it, once, twice. The words blurred, because for the first time, he understood something he had been too late to see. She hadn't left because she didn't feel anything. She left because she felt too much. And now, she was gone. Not just from the office, not just from his schedule, from his life. Jihoon exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. The office felt different now. Empty. Cold. Like something essential had been removed. And no matter how powerful he was, he couldn't get it back. For the first time in years, Jihoon Seo didn't feel in control. Because this wasn't a deal he could negotiate. This wasn't a problem he could solve. This was loss. And the worst part, he hadn't even realized what he had, until it was already gone. Paris didn't ask for permission to be beautiful. It simply was. Golden lights spilled across the Seine. The night air carried soft music, distant laughter, and the quiet intimacy of a city that had witnessed too many love stories to count. Jihoon Seo stood on the balcony of a luxury hotel, a glass of untouched whiskey in his hand. Below him the city shimmered, alive, romantic, unforgiving. He hated it, because this city had a way of making people feel things they tried to avoid. And Jihoon had spent months avoiding exactly that. Work had become his refuge, long hours, endless meetings, expansion deals, anything to keep his mind from drifting back to one name, Zara. But no matter how much he buried himself in numbers and contracts, she remained. In the silence, in the pauses between conversations, in the empty space beside him that no one else could fill. Mr. Seo? He turned slightly. An assistant approached carefully. The French partners have arrived. The meeting will begin shortly. Jihoon nodded once, composed, controlled, unreadable, just like before. But inside, nothing was the same. The conference room was all glass and power. Executives sat around a long-polished table, voices blending into strategy and negotiation. Jihoon entered last. All eyes turned to him. And then, everything stopped, because across the table, sitting calmly, reviewing documents as if nothing in the world could shake her, was her, Zara Adekunle. Time didn't slow. It collapsed. Jihoon's steps faltered, just slightly, barely noticeable. But to him, it felt like the ground had shifted beneath his feet. She looked up. Their eyes met. And just like that, months of silence shattered in a single glance. But Zara, she didn't react. Her expression remained composed, professional, untouchable. Mr. Seo, she said smoothly, as if they were strangers. Welcome. The formality hit harder than anything else. Jihoon pulled himself together quickly, taking his seat. Miss Adekunle. Miss, not Zara. Not anymore. The distance between them had evolved. It wasn't fragile now. It was built, intentional. The meeting continued. Numbers, contracts, projections. But Jihoon didn't hear a word, because every time she spoke, every time her voice filled the room, it pulled something inside him tighter, stronger, and worse. She wasn't the same. She was sharper now, more confident, more distant, untouchable, and it unsettled him more than he expected. When the meeting ended, executives stood, shaking hands and exchanging polite smiles. Zara gathered her documents, calm as ever. Jihoon moved before he could stop himself. Stay. The word wasn't loud, but it was enough. She paused, just briefly. Then, I don't think that's necessary, Mr. Seo. Mr. Seo. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. It wasn't a request. Zara exhaled slowly, then nodded once. The room emptied, the door closed. And suddenly, it was just them again, for the first time in months. Silence stretched between them, heavy, unavoidable. Jihoon spoke first. Why didn't you tell me? Zara didn't look up from her papers. Tell you what? He stepped closer. You were coming to Paris. She finally met his gaze, calm, unmoved. Would it have changed anything? Yes, but he didn't say it. Why did you leave like that? He asked instead. There it was, the question he had been carrying for months. Zara held his gaze for a long moment. Then, because staying would have destroyed me. The honesty hit harder than anger ever could. Jihoon's voice dropped. Destroyed you? How? Zara looked away briefly as if choosing her words carefully, but when she spoke, there was no hesitation. Because I loved you. Silence. Complete. Jihoon didn't move, didn't breathe. The words landed slowly, deeply. as if his mind needed time to catch up with what his heart had already known. You? He started, then stopped. Zara let out a soft breath. Yes. No denial. No deflection. No escape. Just truth. Jihoon ran a hand through his hair, shaken in a way he hadn't been in years. Ah, then why didn't you say anything? Zara smiled faintly. Sad. Tired. Because you were engaged, the reminder cut. And even if you weren't, she continued, her voice quieter now, you were never mine to love. Jihoon stepped closer. You don't get to decide that. Zara shook her head gently. I already did. The distance between them felt smaller now, but heavier. Do you still feel that way? He asked. The question hung between them, dangerous, hopeful, terrifying. Zara's eyes flickered, just slightly. Yes. The truth came out softer this time, but it didn't hurt any less. Jihoon's chest tightened. Then why are you standing here like none of it matters? That broke something. Zara let out a shaky breath, her composure slipping for the first time. Because it doesn't change anything, her voice cracked. Just slightly. You chose someone else, she continued. You built a life that didn't include me. I ended it. The words came out fast, immediate. Zara froze. What? Jihoon stepped closer. I ended the engagement. Silence. Zara searched his face, for doubt, for hesitation, for regret. She found none. When? She asked quietly. Soon after you left. That made her inhale sharply. Why? Jihoon didn't hesitate this time. Because she wasn't you. The truth hung between them, raw, unfiltered, irreversible. Zara's eyes softened, but only for a moment. You don't get to say that now, she whispered. Why not? Because it's too late. Jihoon stepped closer again. Close enough to feel her breath. Is it? Zara's heart pounded, loud, unsteady, dangerous. Yes, she said, but it didn't sound convincing. Jihoon's voice dropped. Look at me and say you don't want this. She couldn't, and that was the problem, because everything she had tried to bury was still there, alive, burning, and standing right in front of her. The night in Paris ended, but nothing felt resolved. Zara Adekunle didn't sleep. She sat by the window of her hotel room, watching the city slowly fade into dawn. Her mind replayed every word, every look, every moment she had tried so hard to survive. I ended the engagement because she wasn't you. Her chest tightened. It was everything she had once wanted to hear, everything she had dreamed of, everything she had convinced herself would never happen. And yet, it wasn't enough. Because love wasn't just about words, it was about timing. And theirs had always been wrong. Zara closed her eyes briefly. You survived him once. Don't go back and lose yourself again. By sunrise, she had made her decision. At Seo Global's Paris office, Jihoon Seo stood in the middle of a conversation he wasn't hearing. Mr. Seo, the voices around him blurred. Because for the first time, he understood something clearly. He was about to lose her. Again. And this time, it wouldn't be because of rules or timing or misunderstanding. It would be because he hesitated. Jihoon exhaled sharply. Cancel everything. The room stilled. Sir? I said cancel it. His voice left no room for argument, because nothing was more important than this. Zara stood at the airport terminal, her suitcase beside her, calm, composed, just like always. But inside, chaos. Her flight was boarding soon. One step, one decision, and she would be gone again. Maybe for good this time. She glanced at her phone. No messages, no calls. A small bitter smile touched her lips. Of course. Why had she expected anything different? Jihoon Seo didn't chase. He didn't beg. He didn't. Zara! Her heart stopped. The voice echoed through the terminal. Familiar, breathless, desperate. She turned. And there he was. Jihoon. No suit jacket. Tie gone. hair slightly disheveled, breathing like he had run through the entire city just to find her. For the first time since she had met him, he didn't look like a billionaire CEO. He looked like a man, terrified of losing something he couldn't replace. Zara's chest tightened. "You came," she said softly. Jihoon walked toward her, slowly this time, as if afraid she might disappear if he moved too fast. "You're leaving?" It wasn't a question. Zara nodded once. Yes. Silence stretched between them, heavy, fragile. Then, Jihoon spoke. "I don't know how to do this." The honesty in his voice caught her off guard. "I don't know how to say the right things, or make this perfect," he continued. "I've spent my whole life controlling everything." He stepped closer. "But you," he exhaled shakily. "You were never something I could control." Zara's eyes softened. "And I think that's why I was afraid," he admitted. That was new. Jihoon Seo didn't admit fear. "Afraid of what?" she asked quietly. He met her eyes. "Completely open now. No walls. No distance. Afraid of needing you." Her breath caught. "Because the moment I did," he continued, his voice lower now, I knew I could lose you." Zara felt her defenses weakening, slowly, dangerously. "And I did," he said. "I lost you, without even realizing you were already mine in every way that mattered." Her heart pounded. "Jihoon," he shook his head slightly. "Let me finish." She fell silent. "This isn't about the past anymore," he said. "It's not about what we almost had, or what we missed." He stepped closer, close enough to feel her breath. "This is about now." His voice softened. "I'm choosing you." The words landed deep, steady, certain. Not as my employee, not as a possibility, not as something hidden behind rules or timing. His hand reached for hers, hesitating for just a second before holding it gently. "I'm choosing you as the woman I want. In my life. Fully. Openly." Zara's eyes filled, but she blinked the tears back. "You don't get to say that like it's easy," she whispered. "You don't know what it cost me to walk away." "I do," he said quietly. She looked at him, searching. "Because it cost me everything too." Silence. The world around them faded. "I thought leaving would make it easier," Zara admitted softly. "I thought distance would fix it." She shook her head. "But it didn't." Jihoon's grip tightened slightly around her hand. "It won't," he said, "because this, what we have, doesn't disappear just because we're afraid of it." Her heart ached. "I don't want to lose you again," she whispered. Jihoon stepped closer. "You won't." Zara searched his face, for doubt, for hesitation, for anything that would tell her this wasn't real. She found none, just him, raw, honest. "Yours, if you choose him." Her voice trembled slightly. "Even if I never really had you before?" Jihoon's hand lifted gently to her cheek. "You have me now." And this time, when the distance between them closed, she didn't step back. His lips met hers softly at first, careful, testing, then deeper, certain. Every unspoken word, every missed moment, every piece of love they had buried, poured into that kiss. Zara's fingers curled into his shirt as she leaned into him fully now. No fear, no hesitation. Because this time, she wasn't losing him, and he wasn't letting her go. The final boarding call echoed faintly in the background. Neither of them moved, because for once, they weren't choosing distance. They were choosing each other. Completely. Irrevocably. Finally.